have 11 in there.
Speakers?
Yeah, 11.2 setup. And this is a 2.1 setup, you could say. Like two regular speakers and one subwoofer. But over here, it's 11. 11 speakers and 2 subwoofers. And they're for restaurants, again, in a small space. So the whole house shakes whenever we have parties, yeah. But we kind of stopped the parties thing to focus. You got to focus. So.
That's wild.
Mm-hmm. Ricky, how are you, man?
Oh, we rolling?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Oh, let me get this thing over here. I'm good, man. I love this setup.
Yeah, I wanna...
come on, konnichiwa. We got compa konnichiwa here too with us.
Yeah. No, I wanted to bring you on the pod because, dude, you know, I would always see you at Sumac, but I was like, damn, Ricky kind of looks scary to talk to.
Unapproachable?
Yeah, you look unapproachable to me, at least. I was like, so.
Dang, resting bitch face.
Exactly.
Dang, I could see that, to be honest.
I mean, you're always focused and you're always on call, so I get it.
Yeah, I just sent one to voicemail. It's not on purpose. I mean, once I get the chance to talk, I'll be inviting, and we'll like we just did, we'll have fun. But yeah, I guess I have resting bitch face.
What do you currently do?
I'm a mortgage broker. Mm-hmm. That's my official title, but I feel like that title doesn't serve the purpose I try to bring out. So technically I originate loans, but my goal with my brand, I'm in the middle of setting up a DBA that's called Avance, and in English Advance, and I'm in the middle of actually setting that up with an attorney. And the whole goal behind that is I'm trying to help advance people's lives, and right now it's through real estate and providing different solutions in real estate. So just essentially trying to be a connector. So like, for example, I had one guy, he came to me, I pre-approved him, but I knew a flipper that was selling a house off market. And so because of the network, I was able to connect him straight to someone to buy a house off market. And then just, knowing contractors, knowing people that flip, knowing wholesalers, and knowing non-traditional forms of funding. Ultimately, we do all this because we want to advance our lives. So that's how the branding came about, is Avance, Advance.
So you said that like the mortgage broker wasn't necessarily like the name that fit you. How come?
Well, it's because a lot of people just punch the clock. It's just like, this is what I'm doing. To me, serves a bigger purpose, and I'm just fitting a certain piece of the puzzle in where my license is, but I'm trying to do something that's bigger than who I am as a person. Does
that mean like helping your community? Does that just anyone in specific? Did you go through a personal struggle that kind of brought up that idea?
I just think there's a lot of lack of awareness and education, and
on whose side?
In finance. I think a lot of times in finance, in my mortgage world, people think of a mortgage and they're like, what's that? So I wanted to be the person that makes it as digestible as possible, but still connect to other resources. So essentially, I just want to be a person that's kind of an all-in-one to connect people to other things in real estate. But with the whole goal of this is just to help people advance in their lives. That's all it is let's just get better.
But better in what sense do you mean? Because like if we could bring a whole bunch of people here and all of them want to better their lives, but are you is it more like the audience, people that want to buy homes, that want to leverage?
That's a good question. So I'm biased, but I think real estate is the easiest way for you to financially advance yourself.
What does that bias mean?
Because I'm biased because with real estate, you can leverage, like with loans, you can leverage loans like crazy in a really smart way. So just to put an example, I actually did this, part of a presentation I did at UNC Charlotte was, let's say right now you were going to buy a $600,000 asset. right now Berkshire Hathaway is around like a $600,000 stock, and you could buy a $600,000 house. They're both considered forms of assets. Let's say you just put 3% down of that 600,000. So 600,000 times 3%, that's 18,000. All right. So you put 18,000, you only own a small percentage. You only put down a small percentage of both of these assets, right?
What would that percentage be?
3%. So 600,000, 3% of that is 18,000, right?
Okay.
Let's say that both of them go up 100,000. The Berkshire Hathaway stock and the house goes up 100,000, right?
Okay.
Whenever it goes up with Berkshire Hathaway, since you only put a small percentage of that stock, you're only going to get about like a tiny bit of that appreciation. So if you were to sell the stock, you're only going to get the appreciation off of the percentage you put in. So essentially you're only going to make like, I think it's like $180 off of the 18,000 you put in. But with real estate, you get to capture the whole 100,000 that it went up.
Captured in what way?
Like if you sold it, but you own that equity is what I'm saying.
Okay, yeah.
So with the stock, you only get to own what you put in, like the percentage based off what you put in. With real estate, you could literally buy a house that's worth 100,000 and put only 3% down or whatever. If it goes up to $1 million, that's all your money. Whereas with stocks, you only get the percentage of what you put in.
But I don't think it's biased, though, because you just explained how it would be beneficial to own a real estate asset instead of a stock asset.
Well, I guess it's biased based off of data.
Okay, yeah. I mean, not everyone can manage stock. And, I mean, some are pretty good. And
I think most people understand houses. Like, it's less scary, in my opinion, for the average person to invest in houses and real estate because the reality is Wall Street has their own story going on. There's people in Wall Street that like artificially spike stocks, and there's just a whole bunch of shady stuff that happens in Wall Street that you can't control that. So you could be an honest person that believes wholeheartedly in a stock, but then some people behind the scenes in Wall Street might be trying to short a stock or something like that, and then you lose your money because someone else closer to the top is trying to make some money.
I think stock would benefit someone if they're gonna look at it from a long-term aspect.
Yeah.
I mean I have like my Roth IRA and
there's nothing wrong with them,
and then some like stock, but I know that it will only benefit me in the long run. Yeah. I'm saying 30 years. But if someone actually wants to build wealth, let's say within a 5-year scope, then obviously I think that the better way and the more understandable way would be real estate.
Personally, yeah.
So you did that conversation in UNC. Your market was students then?
Yes, because obviously, like any investment, if you can start earlier, that's better. Because time in the market outperforms timing the market.
But most students are already in debt while they're in school. Why would they go down this path?
It's a great question. So student loans are actually not often a huge debt in terms of a monthly liability. So for example, me personally, I have $15,000 of student debt, and I care nothing about it. Like, it's okay. I'm okay with that because the monthly payment on that is only about 1% of it, which is only $150 a month.
Okay.
That's nothing. So for me, I would literally just be focused on putting my money into real estate because the interest on the student loans is super low. So a simple example, a house that's $300,000, if it appreciates just 5% for 5 years, which is very conservative in real estate. In Charlotte, they've been appreciating
in this market, right?
Even conservative for here. Here it's been appreciating closer to 8 to 10%.
The Charlotte market?
Yeah, Charlotte market.
Every year?
Yeah. Well, not every year, but the recent years.
Okay.
But historically, real estate's around 5.
All around.
Yeah.
Okay.
So me being super conservative, 5% appreciation for 5 years on a $300K house, you're looking at about $84,000 in just 5 years.
That's without you doing nothing.
Nothing. Nothing. So you would never get that out of any other asset class because you could put a 3% down payment on a $300,000 house, which is only $9,000. In 5 years, that same asset's now worth $84,000 more. And in this example, you could have just put $9,000 into it.
And what you said goes a long way because you get to grab that equity and it's yours.
Yeah.
And I didn't really appreciate that until someone explained it to me because in a sense, sometimes you think about a household and you only think about the end goal of after selling it, but you don't really ever think about how that money grew exponentially just because of the return that you get every year. Again, you said it's conservative, but I mean that's still.
I'm trying to not blow things out of proportion. Now,
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't want some troll on here to be like, well, historically, like I'm protecting from the trolls.
Yeah.
But yeah, 8 to 10% is even more. I mean, in 5 years, you're looking at like what 120, 140,000 in just 5 years with 8 to 10%. But this way is how most people have become millionaires. Because honestly, a lot of people are millionaires nowadays through that because of how much homes have increased throughout the years. Let's say 30 years ago, you owned 5 properties at how much they were paying for them back then and how much they're worth now. I mean, literally, you could just have 3 $400,000 properties and you're already a millionaire because they could be paid off over 30 years. So let's say 30 years ago, it's not a crazy thing to say someone probably could have bought properties for 100K or less in Charlotte easily. They own 3 or 4 of them and they're probably all at least worth 400,000.
And even if in today's Charlotte market, like I mean, I've seen on average $200,000, $300,000.
Yeah, they're still out there.
I think that if we can actually look at it long term, we can appreciate the value that's going to bring in the next 10 years.
It's going to be crazy.
It absolutely crazy. It's but going back to kind of what I asked you then, how would a student be able to leverage a real estate debt? How do they get into that?
Yeah, so to me it's really as simple as most of them are studying for a career.
Okay.
And so in the mortgage world, you're actually given a loan based off of your income on the traditional loans, like traditional residential loans. So if they're going to school for a career, it's probably because, it probably indicates that once they graduate, they're probably going to get an offer letter and hope to start in that career.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what you need for mortgages. You need some kind of career, and I can actually count their college transcript, their college history as a 2-year history for their career they're in now. So even though they just started their job, I can count the college education as history for their job.
So do you get the loan after you're done with school?
You can literally get pre-approved as you're graduating. And as long as we have an offer letter, that offer letter will count as income that will be coming in. They will just want to see a pay stub come in at some point. But essentially, right when you graduate, first pay stub, I mean, that's a job I can use.
Is that called then first time home buying, or what type of loan is that? Because I mean, there's so many terms today, so much jargon.
Finance is annoying, but yeah, it is a first time buyer loan, but it's literally just the guidelines. It's just me undusting something, like cleaning off the dust off something that a lot of people don't know about. It's nothing that is brand new. It's not a new sexy thing. It's just something that exists. If you went to college for something and you get a job in it, you can count the education towards it. It's really, and it doesn't have to be a first time buyer, but oftentimes it is.
How many people took advantage of that whenever you went to go talk to that group?
Well, they're still mostly younger, and it was a smaller crowd, but I know they will at some point. So it's still, it's more so watering plants. I'm watering plants for a long-term outcome.
Okay.
It's not something where you go and it's like, okay, I'm going to do this now. Because it's a lot for someone that, honestly, if they're in college, most of them were living with their parents just 4 years ago when they were senior in high school. Most of them. So to go from 3 or 4 years ago living with mommy and papi to thinking about, I'm going to buy a house next year, that's a lot. So that's it's what's more so watering those plants right now. And some people have taken advantage of it. Like I've had some people that have in the past, but I'm trying to just now talk to college students to bring that to them as an idea that maybe they didn't think about before. Because right now, if they bought a house, it's the easiest time for them to have roommates. So that's a way for them to offset their living costs. Is most of them are going to have roommates anyways. What college kid's going to go rent a house and just live in it by themselves right after they graduate? It's not many of them.
Yeah.
So if they're going to, instead of being the roommate, they can be the landlord. And so you can buy this house, get your real estate rental portfolio started, and you're probably not going to be paying much because you're going to have roommates. So this is the easiest time for them to buy those houses because they won't have a family. They're not going to be married, most of them. And so it's the easiest time to buy that. And you only have to live in it for a year, and then after that you can move out. So you don't have to stay in a house you buy forever. You can literally, once you graduate, buy it, live in it for a year, and then buy the next one. So in my opinion, I'm biased because it's the easiest time to have roommates. Because if you wait till you're in your 30s, 40s, you're often going to have a family, more settled down. You don't want roommates when you're that settled. Usually.
When you're married, you don't get to make decisions.
Exactly. That's a little odd.
Yeah.
But so one, it's easiest time to have roommates, and two, it's the easiest time for you to be able to like move often. And third, I think it's a way for you to protect your assets before getting married. So think about this. A lot of people, they end up waiting till they get married to buy a house. But if they would have bought houses before they even met their significant other, they could prenup those houses. And with 50% of marriages ending in divorce, they would have those houses if shit hits the fan. And so it's a way to actually protect yourself too, because now you have assets that you've set aside before you've met a partner that hopefully works out. But if it doesn't, you still have set aside some way for you to be building wealth in the meantime.
Yeah. Dang, you're very pessimistic about the marriage thing.
The what?
The marriage thing.
Well, that's a statistic. I said a number. I didn't say half of y'all because of my opinion. It's the statistic.
Yeah, no, just
I hope it all works out for all of the viewers and everybody, but unfortunately, it doesn't always work out. And so, if it works out, you and your significant other have rental properties, and you're just in a better position.
So, a question. So, do you put that loan in your? It's a personal loan.
Yeah.
It's
so it's based off of your credit. So it's going to show up on your credit report. Yeah.
Okay. No, I'm just thinking about it more on a, I guess, entrepreneurial mindset. You said that would be a good way to start your portfolio. So, I mean, then it would be under your name. You're not only is it that audience that needs more of this information, what other audience you think that is also limiting themselves because they don't take advantage of this?
Well, that's why the brand, when I was trying to think of a name, I wanted it to be for English and Spanish. Because Avance, it's obvious. But Avance, I wanted to speak to the Spanish-speaking community because I love our Hispano race, but there's just a lot of lack of knowledge about how things are done and what resources we have and how it's often a lot easier than we think. And I feel like, honestly, I'm going to come from a point of a little bit of privilege. I came to this country. Well, I grew up in this country. My family immigrated here.
You have citizenship then.
Yeah, I have citizenship. So it's my job, because of my family's sacrifices. It's my duty to reveal what the standard American has been doing that maybe my family would have never known about. Like, I'm mingling in those crowds. I went to college with those crowds. And so now it's my time to reveal what that looks like and how they can use it too.
But and I'm talking to you more from like an immigrant standpoint. Can people with W-7s get homes?
They can.
Because you know that most immigrants aren't paid with a W-2.
I have a great loan for that, actually.
Because most immigrants are paid on a 1099 basis. It's
So I have a loan. I have a mortgage loan. This is my most popular W-7. Okay, let's be realistic. Most people that make good money that have the I-10, most of them own their own business, right? How often have you heard of a W-7 person making a 100K salary? It's pretty rare, I feel like.
Yeah, but there are also the cases where there is I-10s that are people that have I-10s are making $40,000, $30,000.
But I mean, the ones that are making like 100 plus often own their own business or 1099 some way, somehow. Right?
Okay, yeah.
Like there's oftentimes not working for a company. You don't often hear, unfortunately, of an I-10 engineer working at Apple or Google.
Yeah.
Ahí con los gringos in Uptown.
Yeah.
Or one of the banks. Oh, I'm W-7, but I work at Truist.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't often happen. So the reality is, because of the lack of opportunity going the W-2 route with an I-10, the path of most upward mobility is going to be entrepreneurship. And fortunately, it's often in the blood of these bundles anyways.
Yeah.
So because of that, they are often writing off a lot on their taxes. And so when you write off a lot on your taxes and you apply for a mortgage, you're saying, hey, government, I made $1 million, but I actually had 980,000 in write-offs. And so now you're saying I only made 20,000, even though we all know you actually made more, but you just have a really savvy accountant. There's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion, but that requires a different loan and your I-10, and I have the mortgage for that. So I have a mortgage where it just uses a profit and loss. We use a profit and loss, and we don't use any of the taxes. And so I literally have a guy in Raleigh that he bought his first house last year with this profit and loss loan, and he just bought his second one this year, and he does concrete work. He's W-7.
He bought it how? Like on
with the mortgage.
With the mortgage.
With me.
How did he buy it? Like, what type of down payment was it?
It's a higher down payment because it is a higher risk loan.
Okay.
But you're also avoiding a ton on taxes because you're writing off everything.
But explain to me the net profit and loss, because most loans, aren't they based off your income? So let's say, again, let's take the $100,000 example, and I write off $80,000, and I'm only
I don't need to look at the taxes. These are called non-traditional loans. So you have your traditional loans that are based off taxes, and then you have those loans that are non-traditional. And me as a mortgage broker, I have access to those non-traditionals. So this is where I'm like, I have more than just your standard individual. And so literally, this client, you have W-7. When he first came to me, he didn't even have credit, and I could still do it. No credit, no taxes. And this is no scam.
But let's be transparent here. At what interest rate? Like,
the rate is definitely higher because it's according to the risk of the client. So if they have a better interest rate and they put a higher down payment, they're going to get a better rate. So the rates on these nowadays, let's say Social Security W-2, like, you know, any standard gringo like me they're going to get a rate without paying points in like the mid sevens right now.
Okay, yeah, 7%.
Right, mid sevens.
A 7% interest rate on a $300,000 loan. How much is that?
300,000. I'm not a calculator. But,
it'd be 21,000.
But maybe with taxes and insurance in Charlotte, maybe like $2,400.
$2,400.
Taxes and insurance.
And that's right, each year.
And mortgage insurance.
Okay.
Todo,
okay.
Con todo. Yeah. So, anyways, but with the W-7, you have multiple risk factors, 2 to 3 on that loan. The biggest one being no taxes.
It's 2 to 3?
Well, it's because there's no taxes, and then you have the I-10, which is in the eyes of the financing company, hey, we're letting someone borrow money that doesn't have citizenship, and in their eyes, worst case scenario, they could end up having to get kicked out of the country.
So that's why it's hard for me to understand that those type of loans exist.
But there's an investor for it. So mortgages are ultimately funded by investors, and investors are people that understand this clientele, and they understand. Imagine me and you start a mortgage company. You're a billionaire and you just let me in on it. So, and I'm just like, hey, yo, this is how we can underwrite these loans to make it make sense. Mm-hmm. But it's a higher risk, so we are going to need to make more money on the interest.
Okay.
That's it. It's really all it is. They understand that Hispanos try to pay their bills, but they also understand that paperwork-wise, there's less to be able to back up that this is a safe loan.
Yeah, absolutely. And so do you find that who benefits off of a non-traditional loan then?
I'd say everyone.
Mostly though.
Everyone. My non-traditional loans are mostly with no taxes. And the reality is the people that are earning the most in the U.S. are entrepreneurs, whether it's social or whether it's W-7. That's just the reality.
Yeah.
And so this same loan with profit and loss, I can do it for social, and they're also getting a higher rate. Just because they're social doesn't mean they don't also get a higher rate. It's just when we add the I-10, it gets another additional knock on the rate because it's a little bit more risk. But who benefits from it? Well, all these millionaires that are making a lot of money through self-employment, or maybe people on their way up in business, instead of paying all that money in taxes to the government, they can maybe reinvest it into the business through actual expenses. When someone gets that new truck for their business, yeah, it is an expense, but it's also investment in their business. Yeah. And so those are things that they're able to do to reinvest into themselves. But at the same time, they can get this loan instead of paying that money in taxes to the government. They can just put this into a higher down payment towards their house. So that's the way I look at it. You're either going to pay the government or you're going to pay a higher down payment on your house. But at least with your house, when you put a higher down payment, you're borrowing less money on the loan. So you're still investing in yourself, because you whenever, let's say the house is $300,000, if you put $100,000 down, you're only borrowing $200,000. When you sell that house, let's just say for some reason it sells for $300,000 again, you're getting that $100,000 back.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's not like whenever I pay taxes, I'm never getting that money back. But whenever you put a down payment on a house, you're investing in yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And wow, that's just non-traditional loans, and that guy is on his way to buy his second house.
He already bought it. He closed last week, 2 weeks ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Was it a fix and flip? Like, do you help fix and flip new home buyers?
Most of my clients are residential.
Okay.
I do have access to fix and flip and build loans. Typically, I'm going to broker it out to like a hard money lender. Yeah, and I have access to a hard money lender that can help with W-7 on fix and flips also. So I'm brokering all my loans. All my loans are brokered. So what I do is I serve as like the knowledge center, and I broker. I'm the connector, whether it's in real estate or in mortgages. But mortgages is where I get paid, but I'm connecting. And so with these unique loan scenarios, I'm brokering it out to different lenders, banks, whatever.
Man, but why don't you think that a lot of us are taking advantage of this?
Lack of knowledge. People don't know about it. People don't know about it. Yeah. people don't know. So that's why I try to take the opportunity to meet people, do presentations here and there, talk to realtor partners, investors, because it's just something people need to know. Even if they don't do it with me, I want people to at least learn about this stuff so that everybody's just getting better. Because
going back to your motto, Avante.
Yeah, it's fitting because it's what I'm trying to actually do. And sometimes I'll literally send people to someone else that's not even working with me because they have something I don't. And I'm like, it's okay, go work with them and they'll make money off it. I won't. but you'll know that I had that intention for you.
But I think that having that good morale gives you a recognizable good name, no? Like,
Selfish.
I mean, whenever you do, what I'm trying to say is, whenever you do good, good comes back to you. So
yeah.
it's like you'll be repaid in other ways.
I hope so, but I'm not going to do it for that reason. You know.
Okay.
I'm not doing it with like, well, I'm going to send you over there, but you better, you know, it's like, you better send me business next year. Like, I'm just going to be like, look, I'm going to send you here. I want you to know I want the best for you. Mm-hmm. If you come back to me in the future, I'd love that. But I'm still happy that you get what you need so that you can improve your life.
What'd you study, by the way? Because I'm curious, how'd you got into this field of work?
International business.
Okay. So you always had that, like,
that dog.
That business mindset.
I guess. I don't know.
Or you just kind of found yourself through the way?
I'm just kind of a meticulous guy, I guess. I've never had a regular job. So when my first job ever, I was staining for cabins, like stain, what you put on wood, staining log cabins for a tiny house home builder in South Carolina. And I was doing that on my own. I had no one supervising me. I literally would come into the plant with the key that I had, driving forklifts and stuff at 16 years old, driving the company truck to do like jobs and stuff with no supervision. And I even hired someone to help me out. That was my first job. And I was timing when the supply chain stuff would come in to know when I needed to get stuff done. And then I would go home and finish my geometry homework. I think just being exposed to different types of work environments, it got me thinking. I did that. Then after that, I did in college, I tried door-to-door sales. And then when I came back, I was an accountant at that same cabin company. And then I was also at that same cabin company. I did sales and design. So I helped design some tiny houses with engineers, and I helped sell them. And then I came back and I've worked in Fortune 500 with Bosch and just living in Germany. I think it's just the experiences you have in life. That's why I liked international business, because it always made me really think outside the box. And I think that's the biggest thing, is macroeconomics and microeconomics, like thinking big and thinking small, and seeing how the big affects the small and the small affects the big, and just understanding how all the things fit in like a puzzle, and just learning how to think that way from a global perspective, but also psychologically, and how it just affects everything, and whether it's business or personal.
It's curious that you say the macro and micro, because most people don't ever look at the micro. They just look at the big perspective, when actually it's made up of a whole bunch of micro organizations that are working. Like, for like a regular family business, $5-10 million of revenue each year, it's still a lot.
Heck yeah.
I mean, if they're getting a good profit, a good return on that, that's still a whole bunch of money. That's still driving the economy. It's still driving that little town, and we don't really ever think about it. But I mean, if you know how to take advantage of it, it goes to your benefit.
Absolutely.
And I didn't know tiny homes were a thing way back then. I'm not calling you old, but that was what?
Old.
Like 10 years ago, no?
Old or pioneer?
No. Because tiny homes were a thing still, like, what? How old are you? 16? So would that make it like 10 years ago?
A little more, but I mean, I age well. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I mean, it's been a thing for a while. Now, here's the truth about tiny homes. Tiny homes is a marketing name, but most tiny homes are actually something else. Because if you go to zoning, you can't go to zoning and go to the county and say, hey, I have this tiny home. Will you hook up my utilities? Because in their book of what types of properties exist, there's manufactured, single family, townhome, modular. What's a tiny home? That's
Wouldn't it be under modular?
No. So they come in different forms. It can be modular, but what if it's not built to that code? then it can't be modular. So what the ones I was doing, a lot of them they were considered RV park models because they were less than 400 square feet, and it was real. What was really unique about it is that they were a tax write-off because they weighed more than whatever. And so I don't know.
So who usually was the customer then? Just
Entrepreneurs, business owners
buying these tiny homes?
Yeah, cash, and writing it off on their taxes.
But to whose benefit? Who would live in it though?
They rent like crazy, man.
Really?
Yeah, people. These are like really nice little getaway spots, Airbnbs. Sometimes just for personal use.
But then where do you said that? Okay, again going back to zoning, it's like where would you put it?
Well,
then?
this is what you have to tell zoning. You have to tell them what it actually is.
A tiny home or
no? That's the marketing name. You tell them, oh, it's an RV park model, or oh, it's a modular home, or oh, it's actually this. But the marketing world, it's like this. Let's say this is a beer. This is a beer, but you could also say it's like, you know, Kawama, cerveza, you know, cheve, whatever. You have different marketing names or slang names for whatever, but then you have the technical term. And so,
okay.
You know, they use the technical term when it comes to zoning, but then the marketing world has something else.
Yeah, because tiny homes used to not be such a big popular thing, but today they are becoming a thing. But I'm like, to whose benefit? Like, really? I mean, if you're single, sure, I see you living in a tiny home. But if you have a family or your partner, then, you know, I guess it'd be kind of hard to live in 400 square feet. It'd be the size of this room.
It's a little bigger, but they're very creative, I will say. Like I've designed tiny homes with king beds in there, full-size appliances, and a loft. And I even fit bunk beds in there on two sides of the wall, and you could fit the king bed. No, one set of bunk beds in the loft. I could fit 6 people in there easy.
In a tiny home.
But I designed this with an engineer. 11 by 44 frame. But it's a science, you know. It's like you have to know like how to do it.
Yeah.
And at the same, it's pretty cool. But at the same time, I'm with you. I'm single family guy personally, because it just appreciates better. And in my opinion, real estate makes the most millionaires, and these millionaires are often buying types of real estate that can sell, which is what's going to be the most popular is your typical traditional single family house.
But I guess tiny homes would only be of benefit if you're going to be renting them out as a getaway spot.
They're good for recreational, and not everybody's a finance bro like me. Some people just want to enjoy something and go out on the weekend, and you know, on the weekends have a tiny home in Asheville. That's the dream, even though Buncombe County doesn't allow them. But you know, people like stuff and just like to have fun, and that's it, you know.
So you've always been then kind of like you've always put yourself out there then.
I'm a little fucked up in the right ways.
But that's good though. Aren't you happy with where you're at? Like
yeah, I like being a little weird. It's fun. It's fun, intellectual conversations and being able to look at things a little unique. Yeah, it's fun. I like it. I love challenging the way things are and looking at it from an intellectual perspective.
Who has been your biggest mentor?
Dang. This is gonna be pretty typical, man. For me, it's got to be my dad. I mean,
not everybody's dad is in their life, so
yeah, but I feel like it's a very typical traditional Mexican thing.
But why your dad though? I'm very intrigued.
I mean, my dad came here. It's the typical story. Didn't speak English, and made a life out of nothing. And we grew up in the sticks, and so imagine there's not many Hispanos out there in the sticks, and so you have to learn how to speak English. And then he now has a business, but I think that's just a lot of discomfort that has been faced. And I'm like, the way I look at it is, whenever I face discomfort, I'm like, there's other people that are in worse situations that have less of an advantage than I do, and they can do it, and they're fighting through this. I should be able to fight through this as well. And I look at personally my father as someone that did that, because he grew up on a farm. Like literally, dude was like out there with the chivos with like rocks in his shoes since he was a kid. And then to come to the US and then to actually have a business and have a house and, you know, be in like first world society, it's just like, it's a big change. And so for me, it's like, the least I can do is try. The biggest risk is not taking risk, in my opinion.
Is there a specific moment to where you like that kind of like really lives in your mind? I know that you told me about him learning how to speak English. He made his own business, but you know, as a kid, was there a specific moment where you like really remember, or maybe a philosophy a story that he told you?
I think it's the opposite.
What do you mean?
Rather than a moment, it's just showing up for yourself every day. So while he was working his 9 to 5, he built the house that we lived in from scratch. So literally imagine getting underpaid at a job, mm-hmm. and then going home every night on the side to help build a house from scratch. We did that every day for 2 or 3 years. I was like 8 or 9, pretty useless chalan, honestly. But I was there, and I was there to, you know.
I'm starting to remember reviews. He's like, no sirves para nada. He's like, estás bien, güey.
No, you can't hold the flashlight, you piece. Yeah. But just the reality of just shut up. Like, just screw your emotions. Show up for yourself every day. That, to me, was big. And my dad's a big rockero. Like, we listen to a lot of Mexican rock. Like, Caifanes is like our thing. Like, we listen to a lot of Caifanes. Yeah. And we would literally, I remember us getting in the car at like 5, 6 a.m. and just going to work. I could barely open my eyes, but we would have that music on, and we would just show up for ourselves every time we went to go work. And it's just like, I guess it's just a matter of shut up and show up for yourself, because your future self is waiting for that. And to me, it's, instead of having an inspiring moment or having a motivational quote, it's just honestly just put in the fucking work and just shut the fuck up and show up.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that would speak volumes to a lot of people, because I mean, not all of us are privileged to have our fathers in our lives.
Yeah, that's true.
And I mean, and sometimes we do have fathers, but they're not they don't really necessarily invoke the best in us.
That's true.
Or like, you know, and sometimes I feel like you could either be a victim or the product of.
That's so true, man. I didn't like it in the moment. I'm going to be straight with you. I was like, all my other friends at school, they're enjoying their spring break. They're doing this. They're having fun. And I'm over here being chalan again. Yeah. And so I didn't like it in the moment.
Have you ever worked, did your dad ever, like, just a funny story. Did you ever work underneath the sun, like being on a roof?
Yeah. I was on the roof, and they were like, don't fall down, but, you know.
Dude, one time I remember, I think I was like 16, and we were, I think, building this frame for like a Starbucks. And it was just like, what do they call it? TPO, I think. And it was just white. It was like, I think like 90 degrees outside.
Oh my gosh.
And I think that whenever you would touch the metal frame, because it's like thick metal frame, your gloves would melt into the frame. And I was just like, dude, like, I hated it in the moment so much, but I was like, we're going to get out of here one day. And I was like, just suck it up and do it. Yes. So that kind of reminded me of the moment that you were saying. Yes, like, man. Most of my friends, it was summer break, and I had to work. I was like, I'm over here, my gloves melting into the metal. It's like 130 degrees whenever like it's hitting the roof, and I'm just like, damn. But again, like, you could be a victim to that, or you could use that for strength.
You can use it for strength, but you could also use it to bring you down. I think it builds character. At the end of the day, if you don't have to face anything hard in life, you're not going to build character. You're not going to get better. And growth requires discomfort. It just does.
Yeah.
It's just the reality. If you're not uncomfortable ever, it's because you're not actually ever pushing yourself to grow.
You think that's why you were kind of attracted to the risk of like leveraging finance? Because it's still a risk, I think. It's like betting on yourself.
It's a calculated risk. To me, I like finance because it's an extremely calculated risk. To me, it's actually the other way around. I see it being more of a risk not getting into finance because your money's dying in the bank. Inflation's outperforming your small interest that we're getting in the bank. So honestly, I don't.
Which is nothing. It's like 0.003.
I actually look at it as the other way around. You're taking more of a risk by not doing anything. That's how bullish I am on doing stuff, like doing things for yourself financially. You're taking a bigger risk by not doing anything because we already know if you don't do anything that your money's devaluing.
But I think that within our community exists that mindset, like I'm gonna put the money underneath my colchon.
That's why they got back problems.
And that little bump in their colchon because of so much money being put there. But I think that if we can, we're kind of the generation to break through that.
I think so. And I think that's the our generation that's here that has gotten informed from what you can do with finance and real estate and just what we learned from what previous American generations have done and are doing. We have that now, and we just got to spread it.
And props to the ones that are doing it, because there's plenty of people that are, I guess our generation aren't doing it, but props to the ones that are, because I'll tell you from firsthand experience, it's hard. It's
none of this is easy. None of it is. Like, I'm going to help guide, but you have to have the will to do anything that's good for you.
Yeah. Absolutely. But other than that, okay, so we talked about kind of like how you got to where you are and what built the character. Tell me a little bit more about your fun experiences. You were telling me that you lived in Germany for 4 months.
Yeah.
How was that?
Well, I studied international business in college, and I think that's a really unique major because it's honestly just a slight variation of like business administration. Honestly, it's a small variation, and I think it's unique because it calls to a lot of people that want to feel like more connected to the rest of the world, I guess. Honestly, there's not really many jobs out there that say we need international business majors. It's really more so a business major with a twist. But as far as that experience, I grew up
with a twist because you're introduced to the world. Is that how you were kind of introduced to like traveling then?
Yeah. So it's a requirement to study abroad, and you're taking a little bit of internationally focused economics and business classes.
How much does it really change?
It's not a huge change, but you're going to be exposed to enough to where I would say it's worth having the name for the major. But it's also not like you're not a business major anymore.
Yeah, because I mean, finance, entrepreneurship, it's really big in the U.S. Like it's huge. But what did you find out whenever you went to Germany? Like, what's the culture like? What's wealth over there?
So the reason I went over there, in my opinion, because people ask me why Germany.
Okay.
And
yeah, that's a good question.
I would say it was the biggest economy in Europe. That's why. I want money.
Okay.
I'm going to be straight up with you. It was either Germany or France, and Germans are known to be nicer than the French.
Really?
It's just known that French can be less nice.
You would think that Germans are more blunt.
But what would you rather have, someone blunt or someone that kind of passive aggressive.
Well, I don't know. The U.S. is passive aggressive.
Well,
I think. Like,
anyways,
please, thank you.
I'm not saying all French people are like this or all Germans, but from the small American mind that I had, I was like, well, Germans seem nicer. That's it. Like, I don't know anything, man. I'm from the sticks. Yeah. I'm from Forest City, North Carolina. It says small town friendly on the sign when you drive into it. Literally, dude. I had a country accent. I don't know. Meth head country. But I mean, it's where I grew up, and it's super calm, and there's nice people.
Yeah.
But anyways, I grew up in the middle of nowhere, and then I went to Charlotte, and that was kind of like, oh, it's kind of like a city. But
Big city vibes.
I never left North America. Like, I had been to Guatemala, I had been to Mexico, but I was like, I just want to see what's in Europe. Like, my biggest thing was I want to know what's out there. I wanted to have like some self-discovery. Yeah. And so when I went to Germany, I was like, holy crap, there's actually like, I feel like the biggest problem is in the US, we think we're the only country that has an established society. Like, people think that the US is the best country in the world and everywhere else is poor or has a lower quality of life. And the biggest problem with that is often the media. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
The media makes other countries look bad. It's horrible.
You don't want to go with the Russians. You don't want to go with the Asians. None of that.
Yeah. When I was going to Germany, they were like talking about like terrorism and stuff like that, because there's a lot of Turkish immigrants, and the news tried to make them seem out like terrorists. And I'm not going to say there is or isn't, but there's always something. I heard gunshots here in Charlotte before I came over here, man. And we talked about it. We're not even fazed by it. But is the news blowing up all the gunshots we hear every day in Charlotte?
Yeah.
No, they're not, because we're America. Like,
yeah, oh yeah, definitely. I think that as the city has grown, like we were ranked some of like the most popular cities. A lot of bad news is also like dispensed all throughout people's media coverage too, and it sometimes makes you like very weary of like whether you want to move to Charlotte or something. But Charlotte's great. It just obviously. It's just like anywhere else. There's good and bad everywhere. Absolutely.
There's good and bad. But to answer your question, I got off tangent.
Yeah, that's good.
In Europe in general, there's just more work-life balance. A lot of people love Europe because there's more balance. And so there's more holidays. Like, if you're W-2, as a standard, there's more holidays, especially in most European countries. Mm-hmm. In Germany, it's a socialist democracy. So, like, if you don't have a job, there's more help from the government, and there's healthcare. College is free. Nothing's free in life. There's no free shipping, but you just get taxed more. But essentially, the basic needs are met more in Germany, and there's more work-life balance. It's more walkable. There's public transportation. But no todo lo que es oro brilla, right? That's the phrase. No todo lo que es oro brilla. It's really harsh winters. It's literally, I get out of class at 4 and it's already dark. It's pitch black, dark at 4 p.m. Easy to get into seasonal depression.
How come?
Just the way weather works in different parts of the world. Like in Europe and Middle East, it can get dark very early. And like in Chile, sun doesn't go down till late sometimes in certain parts of the year.
So what time does the sun rise?
Sunrise was like normal. They just had less sunlight. And then it's harsh winters. Wow. And then with the taxes, some people don't. I made it sound good, but now let me make it sound bad. What if you're a hardworking person and you see somebody just keep going to college over and over and over again? They never plan on getting a job because they know college is for free. So then they're abusing the college system. And then you have a bunch of overeducated people, because now everybody has degrees. So is your degree even that meaningful anymore when everybody has degrees now?
Yeah.
So no place is perfect. But to answer your question, I think for them, they value balance. That is the biggest thing. High quality food, high quality, like, walkability, and work-life balance. Even in the biggest cities in Germany, like Berlin is a huge party city, everything's closed on Sunday in Germany. So they're big about work-life balance.
But who regulates that? The government itself?
Yeah, dude, you can't have a business open on Sunday
Really?
in Germany. Even in Berlin, you can literally party your ass off all week. But on Sunday, good luck finding a grocery store, a Lebensmittel, or breakfast. It's practically impossible.
Is that because they put an emphasis on family, or is it more because of a religious perspective?
I think it's old religious perspective, but they support it because they're like, well, work-life balance is good. So those are days where often they have something called, I could never pronounce this that good, but it's called Brötchen. And what it means is people would sit at breakfast together. They would some bakeries are open on Sundays. A lot of things aren't though. And they would
I was about to say the boulangerie, but that's French.
And they would get fresh bread from the bakery, and they have like family time breakfast. Like that's like known to be like a very important thing to have breakfast together on Sundays, and that's called Brötchen. You're having like little pieces of bread together, and with salami and cheeses from like different parts of Europe and jams and stuff.
But didn't technology play a huge role also in those breakfast settings? Or is it kind of like they took it out?
What do you mean technology?
I mean phones.
No, bro.
No?
That's a great topic. People in Europe are very low-key. Like, I will meet a super attractive girl, and she'll have like 100 followers on Instagram, and it's private. Guys, super down-to-earth like you and I. Well, I guess we're not that down-to-earth because we do a lot of social media.
Yeah.
But people like us that just have a good conversation with you on the street, they're not to be found on social media. There's so much less emphasis on social media over there than over here. In America, we do a lot of social media, but in Europe, there's definitely your influencers, but the average person is much more intimate on a personal level. Like at the dinner table, they're not putting stuff on their story often. It's very much old school, I'd say.
So did that increase like socialization?
Yes, I would say you have higher quality socialization with the people with you, but then there's so many facets to this. In Germany, at least in my opinion, you're more likely to stick with your people you already know, and you're less likely to go out and just meet new people. Whereas
Network and stuff.
Whereas the US, we're almost like little dumb kids to them. We smile and we're just happy to meet anyone, and we're super loud to them. Whereas them, they think they're like, it's more like of a sophisticated quality culture. And so with them, it's like they're going to be nice, but it's just not as common as someone just to randomly get into a group. And I feel like that's even common in Asia. Eduardo here, sitting across from me, studied abroad in Japan. Asia and Europe, a lot of other countries out of US and even Mexico, I feel like is a very inclusive culture. They're a little bit more exclusive. I mean,
I heard that in Tokyo, another friend was telling me, he was also on the podcast, like there's some places where only Japanese people can go into. Like if you're Hispanic, if you're black, if you're white, you're not going to get into those settings.
I have a story about that.
Wow. Then you really start getting perspective then when you start living with.
It's crazy, man.
In a German household.
And my German host family, amazing people, man. It was personally, my parents split up when I was young, and it was the first time I was in a household where like the parents were together. I felt like I was part of a family.
Yeah,
it was awesome. Like,
they treated you like you were family.
They treated me amazing. I went and saw them last year when I traveled through a couple of countries. I went back to them after 4 or 5 years of not seeing them.
Yeah,
and I saw them. We picked up right where we left off. They were still shocked I could still speak some German. I spoke pretty decent German, and it was just like they really feel like my German parents. That like dead ass. It's one of the most beautiful things I've gotten to experience in life is having that bond and connection with someone else, and also integrating as a foreigner in another country.
Yeah.
Like having that perspective of like having to almost think like a child again, because your eyes are peeled and you're constantly in a state of learning. And that's my favorite thing about traveling, is that you're challenged constantly. Like here in Charlotte, I don't even have to blink twice. I already know what I'm doing. I don't have to think about all my surroundings.
You already know the potholes that you have to avoid.
Yeah. I already know, okay, on 77, I can speed a little bit. If I go to the sticks, they don't have anything better to do, so they're probably going to more likely to give me a ticket, you know.
The most dangerous exit is like 3A or like 5A.
Yeah,
merging.
exactly.
Oh, somebody already crashed. There's going to be someone else.
Yeah, we know this stuff, but in traveling, I'm like, eyes are peeled. And the last thing I want to add to that wealth piece, this is the most common question I get whenever people ask me, they're like, where do you think you would be better off, in Europe or the US? Huge hot topic question.
Okay. That's a good way to end it off. Yeah.
I run this by Europeans too. This is not just my opinion. This is, well, I'm just going to say Germany. That's what I know best.
Okay.
But I still think it relates to most of the rest of Europe, because they still, for the most part, they think similarly in terms of work-life balance and stuff like that. Germany is very consistent in terms of like, you have your basic needs. People are more similar to each other. US, we're mutts, man. We have people from all over the world. We've got crazy people. We've got shooters. We've got nice people. We've got philanthropists. We have everything. Like, we have all types of ideas, because there's just so much individualism. That's the correct word in the international business education, is individualism. Whereas whenever you're in a society that's less different, that's called being more collective, I believe. And so they're a little bit more collective than we are. We're the most individualistic country in the world,
Okay.
the United States.
I get, yeah.
So in terms of personality, Germany is going to be more in the middle. US is up, down, up, down. Just in Charlotte, you're going to have so many different experiences just based off where you live. Now, let me tie that to economics. If you are just going to work a W-2, like a regular job,
Yeah.
you're probably going to have a higher quality of life in Europe. But if you're trying to make it out, you have an easier chance in the US if you're trying to get out of the 9 to 5.
Oh, okay.
Because
okay.
It's so easy to start businesses here, and there's less rules. There's so many more rules in Germany to start businesses, because they're so process oriented, and everything has to be a certain way. So here you can start an LLC literally tonight and start taking checks immediately. You can even start taking checks for a business before you have an LLC.
Yeah.
And you can hire people that are undocumented. You can write off practically so many things. And so there's such an advantage here to starting your own business, collaborating with people, and you have such a huge marketplace of 50 states to sell to easily, and even internationally. Whereas over there, because there's so many different cultures, it might be a little bit more difficult to do business with countries that are right beside you and stuff. So long story short, if you're trying to get out of the 9 to 5 race, US is better, and you get paid less in Europe because of all of the benefits you get.
Yeah.
And then socially, US is totally up and down, whereas you're going to have a little bit less of extreme personalities in Germany and Europe. Okay. So I'll quit hogging the mic, but that has to be said when you're comparing US and Europe.
Yeah, and I think it really depends what's your objective at the end, like whether you want to live consistently. Again, if you're happy with your 9 to 5, go crazy. If you're happy with entrepreneurship and want more problems, go crazy.
That is so true. That is so true. It is not, just because there's more money doesn't mean it's worth it for everybody.
But either way, thank you, Ricky, for being on the podcast. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have you here again, because we didn't get to talk about everything. But thank you for sharing some of your experience.
I don't know if you're gonna invite me again because of how much I talk.
Some of your share more expertise, share more stories. And guys, thank you. If you guys stayed this long, make sure you guys comment on whether you liked Ricky as a guest and want him here again.
Also,
if you want to troll him a little bit, make sure to do it underneath the comments. And I'll tag him down below. Make sure you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel, as it does help us grow. So we'll catch you guys in the next one. Ricky, thank you for being here.
Thanks for inviting me and tolerating my odd perspectives.
Thank you. Catch you guys in the next one.
Cheers.